Every morning, millions of people wake up before dawn. They grind through 12-hour workdays. They sacrifice weekends, skip meals, and push their bodies to exhaustion. And yet, when they look around, they see others half as dedicated, living lives twice as fulfilled. Something doesn't add up, does it? We've been sold a story about success that feels noble and fair, but the evidence keeps contradicting it. Hard work, we're told, is the great equalizer. But if that were true, every construction worker would be a millionaire, and every nurse would retire wealthy. The uncomfortable truth is this: success has almost nothing to do with how hard you work. Before you close this video thinking I'm about to justify laziness, stay with me. This isn't about working less. It's about working differently. It's about understanding that the world rewards specific types of effort, not effort itself. And if we don't grasp this distinction, we'll spend our entire lives exhausted and confused about why we're still standing in the same place. Consider this for a moment. We live in a world where a single piece of software can generate more value in one day than 1,000 laborers can produce in a year. Where one strategic decision can build an empire while a lifetime of manual labor barely covers rent. Where timing, leverage, and positioning often matter infinitely more than the sweat on your brow. This isn't cynicism. This is pattern recognition. And the patterns are screaming at us if we're willing to listen. The psychologist Anders Ericsson spent decades studying expertise. His research revealed something fascinating and troubling. Deliberate practice matters, but only up to a point. Beyond that threshold, what separates the exceptional from the merely competent isn't more hours. It's better systems, superior mental models, and the courage to challenge assumptions everyone else accepts as gospel. Yet we keep preaching the gospel of hustle as if volume alone creates value. Think about the people you know who work the hardest. Really think about them. The colleague who's first to arrive and last to leave. The friend juggling 3 jobs. The family member who never takes a vacation. Now ask yourself honestly, are they thriving? Or are they surviving? Because there's a massive difference, and we've confused the two for far too long. Hard work without direction is just expensive motion. It burns calories in time but builds nothing lasting. Here's what nobody wants to admit. The modern economy punishes traditional hard work. It punishes people who trade hours for dollars. It punishes those who follow instructions perfectly but never question the instructions themselves. Meanwhile, it disproportionately rewards those who understand leverage, who build systems instead of completing tasks, who create once and benefit infinitely. This isn't about fairness. It's about mechanics. And until we understand the mechanics, we'll keep blaming ourselves for a game rigged against our strategy. I've watched brilliant people destroy themselves trying to outwork their problems. They believe if they just push harder, stay longer, sacrifice more, eventually the universe will notice and reward their dedication. But the universe doesn't have a suggestion box. It doesn't care about your effort. It only responds to results, and results come from intelligent action, not desperate motion. The Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck researched achievement for years, developing her concept of growth mindset. But here's what gets lost in the popular interpretation. Growth isn't just about effort. It's about strategic effort. It's about feedback loops, pattern recognition, and the willingness to abandon strategies that aren't working, no matter how much you've invested in them. Yet we've reduced her work to try harder, which misses the entire point. Let me be direct. If you're working hard and still struggling, the problem isn't your work ethic. The problem is you're playing a game with outdated rules. You're bringing a pickaxe to a software revolution. You're optimizing for industrial age values in an information age economy. And the tragedy is that nobody told you the rules changed. They just let you keep digging while others build elevators. We need to talk about the opportunity cost of hard work. Every hour you spend grinding away at low-leverage tasks is an hour you're not spending building systems, developing rare skills, or creating asymmetric opportunities. It's an hour you're not spending on strategic thinking. And in a world where one good decision can eclipse 10,000 hours of manual labor, that's a catastrophic misallocation of your most valuable resource. The ancient Stoics understood something we've forgotten. Marcus Aurelius wrote that, confine yourself to the present, but he didn't mean grind yourself into dust with busywork. He meant focus your energy where it actually matters. Seneca warned about keeping busy for the sake of being busy. Epictetus taught his students to distinguish between what they control and what they don't. None of them preached blind hustle. They preached discernment. Here's the pattern successful people understand. Value creation doesn't scale linearly with effort. It scales exponentially with leverage. Write one book that resonates, and it sells for decades. Build one business system, and it generates while you sleep. Develop one rare skill combination, and you become irreplaceable. But try to trade your hours directly for money, and you've capped your potential at whatever your body can physically endure. The data backs this up. Studies on income mobility show that working longer hours correlates poorly with upward economic movement. What does correlate? Strategic career moves, skill acquisition in high-demand areas, building or joining ventures with exponential potential, starting businesses that create leverage. But these require something hard work alone can't provide. They require thinking differently about value itself. We've confused activity with achievement. We've made a virtue of exhaustion. We've turned busyness into a status symbol and rest into something that requires justification. And in doing so, we've trapped ourselves in a performance that looks impressive but leads nowhere. We're all on stage, performing hard worker, while the script calls for something entirely different. If you've ever felt that sinking feeling that your effort isn't translating into results, you're not broken. You're just following advice designed for a world that no longer exists. The Industrial Revolution needed bodies in factories, producing predictable output through repetitive tasks. That world rewarded showing up and grinding. But that world is dead, and we're still living by its values. So what actually drives success if hard work doesn't? Let's start with leverage, because this concept alone will reshape how you see everything. Leverage means getting disproportionate results from your inputs. It means arranging your life so that one unit of effort produces multiple units of return. And the modern world offers more forms of leverage than have ever existed in human history. There's capital leverage, where money works on your behalf. There's labor leverage, where other people's time multiplies your output. There's code and media leverage, where you create once and distribute infinitely at zero marginal cost. But the most powerful leverage of all? Mental models. The ability to see patterns others miss. To make connections that seem obvious only in retrospect. To understand systems at a level that allows you to shift small inputs for massive outputs. Naval Ravikant, entrepreneur and philosopher, put it perfectly. Code and media are permissionless leverage. They're the leverage behind the newly rich. You can create software and media that works for you while you sleep. But to build these things, you need something beyond work ethic. You need vision. You need the ability to create value that scales beyond your personal time investment. Think about compound growth for a moment. If you improve by 1% every day, you're not 1% better at the year's end. You're 37 times better. But here's the catch. That compounding only works if you're improving the right things. You can't compound your way to success by getting incrementally better at tasks that don't matter. You need to compound skills that have exponential potential. This is where most people get it catastrophically wrong. They focus on getting better at their current job, their current responsibilities, their current constraints. They optimize within the box instead of questioning whether they're in the right box at all. Real growth comes from asking, what skills would make me 10 times more valuable? What knowledge would change how I see opportunities? What capabilities would let me play entirely different games? The psychologist Angela Duckworth researched grit for years, and her work is often cited to justify grinding through anything. But read her carefully. Grit isn't about stubborn persistence in the face of futility. It's about passionate perseverance toward long-term goals. Goals that matter. Goals worth the sacrifice. She never said to grit your way through a dead-end path. She said to find something worth being gritty about. Let's address timing, because nobody wants to talk about this. The same action taken at different moments yields radically different results. Starting a company during an economic boom versus a recession. Learning a skill just before it becomes desperately needed versus after everyone else has already mastered it. Positioning yourself in a growing field versus a dying one. Timing isn't everything, but pretending it's nothing is naive. The uncomfortable truth is that some people succeed partly because they were in the right place at the right time. Does this mean effort doesn't matter? No. It means effort directed toward the right opportunities, at the right moment, with the right skills, produces exponentially better results than the same effort scattered randomly across your life. Here's what changes everything. Instead of asking, how hard am I working? Start asking, am I working on things that compound? Instead of, how many hours did I put in? Ask, did those hours build assets or just complete tasks? Instead of measuring your day by exhaustion, measure it by whether you're closer to asymmetric opportunities. Let me give you a framework. Every action you take falls into one of 3 categories. First, maintenance tasks. These are necessary but create no growth. Answering emails, attending obligatory meetings, keeping up with the baseline. Second, linear tasks. These create value proportional to time invested. You work an hour, you get an hour's worth of results. Third, leveraged tasks. These create value that exceeds time invested. Building systems, creating content, developing rare skills, strategic networking. Most people spend 80% of their time on maintenance and linear tasks, then wonder why they're not growing. Meanwhile, the successful deliberately invert this. They automate or delegate maintenance. They minimize linear work. They obsess over leveraged activities. This isn't about working harder. It's about playing a completely different game. The economist Thomas Sowell wrote that, "It is hard to imagine a more stupid or dangerous way of making decisions than by putting those decisions in the hands of people who pay no price for being wrong." Apply this to your own life. Are you taking advice from people who succeeded in a different era? Who climbed a ladder that's been removed? Who never faced the specific challenges you're dealing with? Most career advice is outdated the moment it's given. We need to talk about skill selection, because not all skills are created equal. Learning to code offers more leverage than learning to type faster. Understanding persuasion offers more leverage than memorizing facts. Building distribution channels offers more leverage than perfecting your product in isolation. Yet we spend years accumulating skills with low leverage because they're easier to learn or more socially accepted. Here's a test. If you stopped doing your current work tomorrow, how long would the value you created continue generating returns? If the answer is 0, you're trading time for money with no leverage. If your value evaporates the moment you stop working, you're renting yourself out, not building anything. And while there's nothing shameful in honest work, let's not confuse it with a path to extraordinary success. The reality is that success has everything to do with smart work. with strategic work, with leveraged work, with work that compounds. Hard work is the baseline, the admission ticket. But it's not the game. It's not even close to being the game. And until we stop glorifying exhaustion and start celebrating effectiveness, we'll keep producing generations of burnt-out people who did everything right and still ended up wrong. So where does this leave you? Hopefully uncomfortable. Hopefully questioning everything you've been told about effort and reward. Because that discomfort, that cognitive dissonance between what you were taught and what you're observing, that's the crack where real growth begins. Let's get practical. Understanding that hard work alone won't save you is step 1. Step 2 is rebuilding your entire approach to effort from the ground up. And that starts with brutal honesty about where you currently stand and what actually needs to change. First strategy: audit your leverage. Take the last month of your life and categorize every significant activity. How many hours went to maintenance tasks? How many to linear work? How many to leveraged activities that could compound over time? Most people have never done this exercise, and when they do, they're horrified. They discover they're spending 90% of their time on things that create zero lasting value. Once you see this clearly, you can start shifting. Not overnight, because you still have obligations. But gradually, deliberately, you can start redirecting energy toward activities that build rather than just maintain. You can start asking, how can I systemize this maintenance task? How can I delegate this linear work? How can I spend 1 more hour per day on something that compounds? The mathematician and philosopher Blaise Pascal wrote that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. He was onto something profound. We fill our days with activity to avoid the discomfort of thinking. But thinking, real strategic thinking, is the highest leverage activity available to you. An hour of deep thinking about your positioning can be worth more than a month of execution in the wrong direction. Second strategy: develop rare skill combinations. The cartoonist Scott Adams talks about talent stacks. You don't need to be the best in the world at any one thing. You need to be in the top 25% at 2 or 3 things, creating a combination that's rare and valuable. Public speaking plus technical knowledge, writing plus design thinking, psychology plus business acumen. These combinations create unique positioning that hard work alone never will. Think about what skills, when combined, would make you nearly irreplaceable. Then pursue those deliberately, not the skills everyone else is learning, not the skills that were valuable 10 years ago, the skills that position you for asymmetric opportunities in the emerging landscape. This requires research. It requires thinking about where the world is heading, not where it's been. Third strategy: build in public and create feedback loops. One of the biggest wastes of hard work is effort that never gets seen, never gets tested, never gets refined. You can work in obscurity for years on something nobody wants. Or you can share your work early, gather feedback, iterate rapidly, and compound your learning speed by engaging with reality rather than theory. This terrifies most people. It means being vulnerable. It means potentially being wrong in public. But here's what it also means. You compress years of trial and error into months. You discover what actually creates value instead of what you assume creates value. You build relationships with people who can see your skills and open doors. The leverage from building in public vastly outweighs the ego risk of being imperfect. The psychologist Martin Seligman researched learned helplessness, discovering that people who feel they lack control over outcomes stop trying. But he also researched learned optimism, finding that people can develop the ability to see setbacks as temporary, specific, and external. This distinction matters enormously. If you believe hard work should automatically lead to success, Every setback confirms that you're a failure. But if you understand success requires strategic work, setbacks become information about what to adjust. Fourth strategy: strategic positioning over tactical excellence. You can be phenomenal at something nobody needs. You can perfect skills in a dying field. You can outwork everyone in a dead-end race. Or you can position yourself where effort gets multiplied by circumstance. This means researching growing fields, understanding where capital is flowing, identifying problems that will matter more in 5 years than they do today. Most people optimize for being good at their current thing. They perfect their resume for their current industry. They network within their current field. They double down on skills their current employer values. This creates incredible fragility. When that industry shifts, when that employer's needs change, when that skill becomes commoditized, they're stranded. Strategic positioning means always keeping one eye on the horizon, always building transferable capabilities, always maintaining optionality. Fifth strategy: create more than you consume. This sounds simple, but it's transformative. Most people are pure consumers. They watch, they read, they absorb, but they never create. Creation forces clarity. It reveals gaps in your thinking. It builds evidence of your capabilities. It creates assets that can compound over time. And in a world drowning in consumption, consistent creation makes you remarkably visible. Start small. Write publicly about what you're learning. Record your process. Share your frameworks. Build projects that demonstrate your abilities. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent and genuine. Over time, this body of work becomes leverage. It opens conversations, creates opportunities, and demonstrates capabilities in ways that resumes never can. The philosopher Nassim Taleb introduced the concept of anti-fragility, systems that get stronger through stress and disorder. Your career should be anti-fragile. It should benefit from change, not be destroyed by it. How? By building skills that translate across domains. By creating multiple income streams. By developing a reputation that opens doors regardless of job titles. By having what Taleb calls skin in the game, where you're genuinely invested in outcomes. Here's what all these strategies share. They replace naive faith in hard work with sophisticated understanding of leverage. They acknowledge that effort matters but direction matters more. That consistency compounds, but only if you're consistent about the right things. That success isn't about working harder than everyone else. It's about working smarter than your past self and being strategic about where you direct your finite energy. Think about your current trajectory. If you change nothing, where will you be in 5 years? If that answer doesn't excite you, something needs to change. Not your work ethic, your work strategy. Not your hours, your leverage. Not your hustle, your positioning. Because continuing to do what isn't working, just with more intensity, is the definition of futility. This isn't comfortable information. It challenges core beliefs about fairness, about merit, about how the world should work. But we don't live in the world as it should be. We live in the world as it is. And in this world, hard work is necessary but insufficient. It's the foundation, not the building. And the sooner we accept this, the sooner we can stop grinding ourselves into dust and start building something that actually lasts. Let's bring this home, because understanding without action is just sophisticated procrastination. You now know that success has little to do with hard work in the traditional sense. You know it's about leverage, positioning, and strategic effort. The question is, what now? What do you actually do tomorrow morning when you wake up and face the same obligations, the same constraints, the same life you had before this realization? You start by giving yourself permission to think differently. Most of us are imprisoned by invisible rules we never agreed to follow. Work 8 hours. Climb the ladder. Pay your dues. Wait your turn. These rules were created by systems that benefit from your compliance, not your success. Questioning them feels transgressive. Good. Transgressive thinking is where change begins. The first concrete change. Protect your attention like your life depends on it, because it does. Every notification, every meeting, every quick question is a tax on your ability to do leveraged work. The psychologist Mischel Csikszentmihalyi spent decades studying flow states, those periods of deep focus where hours pass like minutes and your best work emerges. He found that it takes an average of 23 minutes to return to deep focus after an interruption. Calculate the cost of that. Every distraction doesn't steal 5 minutes. It steals 30, 40, sometimes an hour of potential deep work. Create sacred blocks of time. 2 hours minimum where your phone is off, your notifications are silenced, and you're working on something that compounds. Not email, not meetings, not maintenance, something that builds. This will feel impossible at first. You'll feel guilty. You'll feel like you're letting people down. But here's the truth. Nobody else is protecting your time. Nobody else is safeguarding your attention. That responsibility is yours alone, and refusing it means accepting mediocrity. Second change. Kill the myth of balance. Work-life balance is a lie sold to keep you perpetually guilty. Either you're working too much and failing your family, or you're present with family and failing your career. This framing is designed to make you lose. Instead, think in seasons. There will be months, maybe years, where you're intensely focused on building something. Then there will be periods where you coast and prioritize relationships. Trying to perfectly balance every single day is exhausting and impossible. The key is being intentional about these seasons. Not drifting into workaholism and calling it ambition. Not avoiding hard work and calling it balance. But consciously choosing. Right now, this is my focus. This is what matters. This is what I'm building. And when this season ends, this is what I'll prioritize next. This approach requires courage because it means accepting that you can't have everything all at once. But neither can anyone else, despite what social media suggests. Third change. Surround yourself with people who think bigger than you do. Jim Rohn famously said you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If those 5 people are grinding in jobs they hate, accepting mediocrity, and complaining about circumstances, you will drift toward that average. If those 5 people are building things, thinking strategically, and creating leverage, you will rise toward that average. This doesn't mean abandoning your current friends. It means deliberately expanding your circle to include people who challenge your assumptions, who operate at levels above your current capability, who model the strategic thinking you're trying to develop. This might mean joining different communities, attending different events, being vulnerable enough to reach out to people who seem out of reach. Most successful people are far more accessible than you think, especially if you approach them thoughtfully and offer value rather than just asking for favors. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that we should focus entirely on what's within our control and accept what isn't. But here's the paradox. Most people get this backwards. They obsess over things they can't control, the economy, their boss's mood, market timing, while neglecting what they absolutely can control: their skills, their network, their thinking, their positioning. Every hour you spend worrying about uncontrollable factors is an hour stolen from improving controllable ones. Fourth change. Document everything. Your learning, your projects, your failures, your insights. This serves multiple purposes. It forces clarity in your thinking. It creates a body of work that demonstrates your capabilities. It builds an audience over time. It provides material for future opportunities. But most importantly, it turns your private learning into public assets. Every piece you write, every video you create, every project you share becomes leverage working on your behalf long after you've moved on to the next thing. People resist this because they worry about judgment. What if nobody cares? What if people criticize? What if I'm wrong? These fears are real but irrelevant. The cost of obscurity vastly exceeds the cost of criticism. Being invisible means missing opportunities you never even knew existed. Being visible means some people won't like what you create, but it also means the right people will find you. Fifth change. Regularly audit and ruthlessly eliminate. Every 6 months, look at everything in your life. Commitments, projects, relationships, habits, subscriptions, activities. Ask, is this creating leverage or consuming it? Is this moving me toward where I want to be or just filling time? Is this a legacy habit I'm keeping because I started it years ago, or is it still genuinely valuable? Then eliminate everything that doesn't pass this test. This is painful. We become attached to things simply because they've been part of our routine. We feel obligated to continue projects we've invested time in, even if they're going nowhere. We maintain relationships out of guilt rather than genuine connection. But every yes to something that doesn't serve you is a no to something that could. Saying no isn't selfish, it's strategic. It's protecting your finite resources for things that actually matter. The existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre wrote that we're condemned to be free. We desperately want to believe our circumstances determine our outcomes because that relieves us of responsibility. But the hard truth is that we have far more control than we're comfortable admitting. Not over outcomes, but over our responses, our choices, our focus, our effort allocation. And accepting this freedom is terrifying because it means we can't blame external factors when things go wrong. So here we are, at the end of this journey. You know now that hard work isn't enough. You know that leverage, positioning, and strategic effort matter more. You have concrete strategies to implement. The question is whether you'll use them or whether you'll drift back into comfortable delusion, working harder and harder at things that don't compound, hoping that eventually the universe will reward your suffering. Nobody's coming to save you. No authority figure will give you permission to think differently. No system is designed to optimize for your success. You have to claim it yourself. You have to think independently, act strategically, and accept that success in the modern world requires playing by different rules than your parents learned. This isn't about working less. It's about working smarter, more strategically, with more leverage and less wasted motion. It's about understanding that the game has changed and changing with it. It's about refusing to keep digging when you should be building elevators. The path forward is clear. Start auditing your leverage. Develop rare skill combinations. Build in public. Position strategically. Create more than you consume. Protect your attention fiercely. Surround yourself with people who elevate your thinking. Document your journey. Eliminate ruthlessly. And most importantly, stop measuring your worth by exhaustion and start measuring it by effectiveness. This is your life. These are your years. You can spend them grinding away at low leverage activities, hoping that effort alone will eventually break through. Or you can accept the uncomfortable truth that success has nothing to do with hard work in the way we've been taught, and everything to do with leverage, positioning, and strategic thinking. The choice, as it always has been, is yours. If this resonated with you, if you're ready to stop playing by outdated rules, subscribe to this channel for more insights that challenge conventional wisdom and provide strategies for navigating the world as it actually is, not as we wish it were. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And most importantly, take action. Because understanding without implementation is just entertainment, and you didn't come here to be entertained. You came here to change. So change, starting